Welcome to a new video of the Trippy Guide series, and in this video I'm going to give you all the information and all the details that you need to know for planning the most adventurous trip of your lifetime to the wonderful country of South Africa. And I thought what better place to shoot this video than in this beautiful country. And right now I am at Kruger National Park, which is our first stop in South Africa. So let's get started with this video. South Africa is one of the most developed nations of the entire African continent. And if you look at the map, you will see that it's located at the southernmost tip of the continent of Africa. Also, the country is bordered by two oceans. So there's Atlantic Ocean on the left side and the Indian Ocean on the right side. Interestingly, South Africa ke three capitals hain. Cape Town, which is the legislative capital. Then you have Pretoria, which is the administrative capital. And then there's a place called Bloemfontein, which is the judicial capital of this country. Now, why should you visit this wonderful country? Well, there are lots of reasons, but let me tell you the highlights. So the first is obviously the place where I am, which is the Kruger National Park in South Africa, one of the most famous national park of not just South Africa, but entire Africa. And it is here where you get to spot the big five, which is lion, leopards, rhinos, African buffaloes and elephants. The second highlight of your South Africa trip would be driving the epic garden route, which is considered to be one of the most scenic road trips in the entire world. And right now I am at Robberg Nature Reserve, which lies on the garden route. The next highlight of your South Africa trip would be shark cage diving with the white sharks. Your next highlight would be visiting the Boulders Beach to meet the African jackass penguins. The currency of South Africa is South African Rand. It's ZAR, and as of August of 2023, 1 Rand is roughly equal to around 4.5 Indian rupees. South Africa lies in the southern hemisphere, and it's a vast country, and it's a very diverse country. Like, there are lots of things to see. So you can come visit this country any time of the year, and there'll always be something interesting to watch. So it really depends on what is it that you're interested in seeing. So for example, we are here in the month of August. So because it's in southern hemisphere, June to August is the winter season. August is the end of winters, and then October to December, January is the summer season, which is also the peak tourist season because it's hot, so the beaches are crowded. The best time for game viewing is apparently the dry and the winter season between June, July to October. And the reason behind it is because it's also the dry season, so a lot of vegetation is gone, so you can spot a lot of elusive animals, and पूरा ही barren land होता है. And obviously there are very few water holes like the ones behind us, so a lot of animals, they like come near to this water hole for drinking in these dry seasons. So this is considered to be one of the best times for game viewing in South Africa. The peak season for whale watching is between August to September. So it depends on the kind of activities that you want to do, but you'll never go wrong with a trip to South Africa during any month of the year. Also, the locals tell us that you can experience 4 different seasons on just one day. So it can be raining heavily, and then it will become sunny, it will be cloudy, it will be windy. So you can experience all of the 4 weathers on just one day. And also, because South Africa is such a huge country, different provinces and different areas experience different weather. So right now in August, Johannesburg is dry, but if you go to Cape Town at this time, then it could be windy and rainy. I have already uploaded a detailed video on the South Africa tourist visa guide, so you can check that video. Basic items like clothes, sunscreen, glares, वो सब तो मैं obviously नहीं mention करूँगी,
But a few things that you should definitely bring along with you when you're coming to South Africa. The first is a jacket, especially if you are coming in the winter months, or if you're coming in August, which is the end of winters, then काफ़ी ठंड हो सकती है. So make sure that you get a jacket. And otherwise also, if you're coming to the Western Cape, like Cape Town, it gets quite windy. and यहाँ का weather भी काफ़ी unpredictable है. Like कभी धूप होगी तो कभी बारिश हो जाएगी and windy रहेगा. So make sure that you always have a jacket with you. And अगर आप winters में आ रहे हो, so you can also get a beanie with you, which is basically a cap to like cover your head and your ears. So that will be especially helpful when you're going for your game drives, early morning game drives at Kruger, and काफी ठंड होती है. Two other important items are your camera and binoculars. Camera is important if you're going to Kruger National Park, because you would not want to miss out on capturing some really cool pictures of the wildlife and animals and birds up close and personal. So try and get along a good camera with you. And you can also get binoculars. That will be helpful when you're trying to spot some faraway animals and birds. वैसे सफारी पे वो binoculars देते हैं, but it's always good to have one of your own. Next is a travel adapter. Now I have this universal travel adapter which has worked perfectly in Europe, New Zealand, Fiji, Maldives, Mauritius. Basically it works in 150 plus countries, but this does not work in South Africa. South Africa के लिए you would need this plug which is called Type M. M for Mumbai. Type M plug. I ordered this from Amazon for like 250 or 300 rupees. And that is because यहाँ के जो ये वाले जो plug points है ये थोड़े different है. So universal adapter will not fit. So you would need this travel M adapter. यहाँ पे तो बाकी points है. बट सिर्फ इसी होटल में बाकी डिफरेंट पॉइंट्स भी थे, बट एट ऑल द अदर प्लेसेस ओनली दिस ट्रैवल अडैप्टर वाज वर्किंग.
South Africa is one of the very few countries in Africa जहाँ पे आने के लिए you do not need a yellow fever vaccine. So if you are visiting countries like Kenya, Ethiopia, from India, then you need to get yellow fever vaccine, produce a certificate, and only then you will be allowed an entry back when you're coming to, like an entry to India when you come back. But South Africa में आने के लिए आपको कोई भी vaccine की ज़रूरत नहीं है.
Now they say that South Africa is not the safest country in the world, but honestly हमें अभी तक ऐसा कुछ feel नहीं हुआ है. But we are also being extra vigilant. The locals will advise you that you should not go out after sunset or after dark. And one of the reasons is also the load shedding जो मैंने already mention किया था, because load shedding होती है अगर शाम में तो पूरा अंधेरा होता है. There are a lot of unsafe areas, there are a lot of safe areas. So as tourists you might not know कि कौन से areas में आप जा सकते हो. So अगर हम रात को जा भी रहे हैं for dinner, we make sure कि we directly go to the restaurant जहाँ पे हमें dinner करना है and काफ़ी crowd है, and we park in front of that restaurant so that we know कि ये safe area है. So as tourists you just have to be a little more careful here, but otherwise it's been a great experience. We have met some very friendly people at Kruger, even at this place, at the various restaurants and cafes where we have gone. So abhi tak the experience has been good. It's just that you have to be a little more careful here.
One important safety tip would be that when you go to a city like Johannesburg, there are a lot of safe and unsafe areas, and obviously as a tourist you would not know. And when you, let's say, land at the airport in Johannesburg or in any other city at night, then it's better that आप अपने होटल के साथ coordinate करके उनको बोलो that they'll pick you up from the airport instead of रात को you trying to book a cab and you not even know whether कौन सी cab company safe है नहीं safe है, कौन से area safe है. So it's best कि आप जब भी first time land होते हो and अगर रात का time है, so you coordinate with your hotel, ask them to pick you up.
If you're taking any domestic flights in South Africa, then it's advisable if you put the lock and key on your bag जो ताला चाबी होता है, because there have been instances wherein your bags have been opened up and इसमें से कुछ सामान निकाला है. So just in case, make sure that you put a lock and key.
Parking पे there's this notice which says only car attendants with red bibs are authorized to receive tips, and the minimum tip recommended is 10 rand. Cars में काफ़ी break-ins होते हैं, so at a lot of places you'll find these people who expect tips from you and then they'll guard your car कि कोई आके आपके कार से कुछ सामान नहीं ले जाए. So in case if you come across such people, then don't like argue with them. Just let them guard your car and in return pay some small tip like 5 to 10 rands. So yes, another tip for safety. Now load shedding, which is basically when the electricity is cut off, is quite common in South Africa, and you will find that every day for a couple of hours load shedding hota hai yahan pe. But as tourists till now, and we've been here for like 10 days, we have not faced any problem. Like most of the hotels and also like apartments like these, they have power backups. Everything is planned in advance, so the load shedding schedule for the day is already published and known to people. So आपको पता रहता है कि आज कितने बजे load shedding होने वाला है. The only problem can be when the load shedding happens after sunset. So when you go out, the street lights would not be working, the traffic lights will not be working, it will be pitch dark. At some of the restaurants, the card machine might not work. There might be some dishes, like grilled wale dishes, जो आपको serve नहीं करेंगे. But इसके अलावा, as tourists, I don't think so you will face any problem because of load shedding. Now tipping, or basically tips देना, is very common in South Africa. So you will be expected to pay certain rands when you go out at restaurants or at petrol pumps. So for example, this is the bill. तो ये हमारा bill था 361 rands का. And at the bottom of every bill there will be a gratuity या tips का line, and you are expected to fill it with the tip amount that you want to give and then put a total. So यहाँ पे हमने 14 rands दिए हैं, so total is 375 rands, and 375 rands is what you would be expected to pay. Even at petrol stations, when you'll go to fill the petrol and आपका वो petrol fill कर रहे होंगे, somebody will come and clean the windows and the glass of your car. इन लोगों को भी you are expected to give some tips. We have been giving like somewhere between 7 to 15 rands depending on हम कहाँ पे खाना खा रहे हैं या हमने मतलब कहाँ पे कार पार्क की है, कितने देर के लिए पार्क की है. But anywhere between 7 to 15 rands is a good amount to tip. I am standing at the Knysna Heads viewpoint, and this lies on the garden route. So one of the best ways by which you can explore this wonderful country is by doing a road trip, which is exactly what we are doing. As always, we had booked a car through rentalcars.com, and if you're coming from India, then you will not face a lot of problems, because here also you drive on the same side of the road as India, which is the left hand side. All you need is your driving license, which should be in English. You don't need an international driving permit. How do you book a car and how do you drive a car in an international or a foreign location? के बारे में सारी details I have already shared in two videos actually. So I'll add the link in the description box, so make sure that you watch those videos.
Kruger National Park is one of the largest game reserves in Africa and probably the most famous game reserve. And this is the best place in Africa to see the Big Five. What do I mean by Big Five? Big Five is basically lions, leopards, elephant, rhinos and African buffaloes. And can you guess why they are called Big Five? Initially I thought maybe it's because of their size, because they are like big and huge, but no, it's not because of their size. It's because when in the earlier days when they were hunters, then these 5 animals were considered to be the most dangerous and most difficult animals to hunt on foot. And can you take a guess that which is the most dangerous of all these 5 animals? Well, my guess was lion or maybe leopard. But no, it's the African buffalo. They are considered to be the most dangerous animal here, and apparently even the lions steer clear of them. And how do you explore Kruger National Park? Well, either you can self-drive, like you can rent a car and then drive inside the park, but I feel the best way to explore this park is to go on game drives. Game drives is basically that you'll be in a jeep along with a ranger and a tracker. So a tracker would be sitting in front. There's a special seat for the tracker and he'll be sitting there, and he's an expert in spotting animals, finding some hidden animals for you. And then there'll be a ranger with you, and the ranger will be communicating with all the other rangers of the park, and they'll be informing each other of any sightings. And as soon as they get to know that some animal has been sighted, then they'll immediately take the jeep and then you'll be able to spot a new animal. When you book a lodge, then lodge के साथ आपको रोज 2 game drives मिलते हैं, which is included in the price. One game drive is early in the morning. तो आज सुबह हम एक game drive पे गए थे, which starts at 6 and we returned at 9:30 and then there's an evening game drive that starts at like 3:30 p.m. and हम sunset तक रहते हैं and we see some nocturnal animals also and then we return back by like 6:30 p.m. The best part of these game drives is कि आपको पता ही नहीं है कि next क्या दिखने वाला है. It's so unpredictable, like you're just driving and then suddenly some animal will appear in front of you, which is so cool. Like it happened today. We just took a turn and suddenly we saw a giraffe. वो unpredictability and not knowing कि आप next क्या spot करने वाले हो, I think the thrill of it is super exciting. Kruger में accommodation book करना is not that straightforward. There are different types of accommodation options. One is a lodge like this, a luxurious lodge like this. Second option is you can stay in tents. एंड द थर्ड ऑप्शन इज़ कि आप जो गवर्नमेंट के लॉजेस हैं आप वहाँ पे भी स्टे कर सकते हो. सो देर आर डिफरेंट प्रोज एंड कॉन्स ऑफ ईच ऑप्शन. तो आप अपना रिसर्च करो एंड आपको जो भी कन्वीनियंट लगे आप वो बुक करो. सो द डिफरेंस बिटवीन अ प्राइवेट लॉज एंड अ गवर्नमेंट ओन्ड लॉज इज़ बेसिकली कि जो प्राइवेट लॉजेस हैं जैसे कि ये लॉज है इनका एक प्राइवेट गेम रिजर्व होता है and generally they don't have a fence between the private game reserve and the main Kruger area. So मैं जिस property में अभी हूँ it's part of the greater Kruger area. तो Kruger से in and out यहाँ पे animals करते रहते हैं. One very good advantage of staying in a private reserve like this is that when they spot an animal, when you're out for a safari and they spot an animal, so they are free to like go off the path and follow that animal. But when you are in a government owned lodge and when you go for the safaris, one is obviously there'll be a lot of people with you, and secondly they are supposed to like stick to the जो भी path बना है, so they cannot like go off the roads and follow some animals. So I would recommend कि आप अपना research करो, but मैं तो बोलूँगी प्राइवेट रिजर्व्स में रुको बिकॉज आवर एक्सपीरियंस टिल नाउ हैज़ बीन अमेजिंग.
If I give you a detailed itinerary in this video, ये वीडियो काफ़ी बड़ा हो जाएगा. So I'll create another video in which I'll share a day-by-day itinerary. But to give you a brief overview, in South Africa there are a lot of airports. There's Johannesburg, Cape Town, George Airport, Port Elizabeth Airport. So on day one we landed from Bangalore to Johannesburg Airport. It was a 13 hours journey with a break at Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And after landing at Johannesburg, we left for Kruger, which was our stop for 4 days. And here, all we did was we went for game drives, which is basically open jeep safari. And हमने बहुत सारे animals देखे, including the big five, and had really close encounters with lions, leopards, elephants, buffaloes, rhinos, zebras, giraffes, lots of birds. So it was an amazing 4 days experience. After spending 4 days at Kruger, we came back to Johannesburg and took a flight to Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape. From Port Elizabeth, we had rented a car and we started driving the epic garden route, which is one of the most scenic road trips in the entire world. Our first stop in the garden route was Knysna for 2 days. We did the Robberg Nature Reserve hike, we went to the Tsitsikamma National Park, to the suspension bridge, and then we left Knysna and then came to this place which is Hermanus, which is our stop for 2 days. And here we saw Cape Aghulas, which is the southernmost point or the southernmost tip of Africa where the Indian and the Atlantic Ocean meet. Yesterday we went for shark cage diving, but unfortunately we couldn't see any sharks, but we saw a lot of seals, like hundreds of seals. So that was a good experience. And Hermanus is also known as the whale watching capital of the world, but like I told you, the weather is not that great, so the boat trips were cancelled. And from Hermanus we are going to Cape Town and we are going to drive the Chapmans Peak Drive, which is a stunning coastal route. We are going to go to the Boulders Beach where there are a lot of African jackass penguins, and then we'll spend a day at Cape Town, and that will be the end of this trip.
South Africa visa for a couple cost 6,800 rupees. While booking the flight tickets, we saw that Johannesburg is the cheapest city to fly into and to fly out from. But because we were doing the garden route, we had to fly out of Cape Town. At the end, we ended up paying 80,000 rupees for the both of us. Staying at Kruger National Park would easily be the highest expense of your trip. Staying in a good private lodge at Kruger would easily set you back by 1 lakh rupees. We spent 1,20,000 rupees for 3 nights at the Toroyaka Bush Lodge, which included our accommodation, 3 meals in a day,
2 game drives every day, and also the to and fro shuttle service from Johannesburg to Kruger. Our trip was for 10 nights, out of which 3 nights was at Kruger National Park. So for the remaining 7 nights, assuming an average of 6,000 rupees, we spent 42,000 rupees on accommodation. For 6,000 rupees, you can easily find a good hotel or an Airbnb or service apartments at any place in South Africa. For food, you can expect to pay an average of around 300 rands or 1400 rupees for a couple for a decent meal. We ended up spending around 19,000 rupees on our entire trip. We had booked an automatic rental car for 6 days which costed us 24,000 rupees. On top of that, petrol and parking costed another 7,000 rupees. South Africa is all about adventurous and fun activities. So you can spend a lot of money on experiences or nothing at all depending on your preferences. We spent around 4,000 rupees on entrance fees to different parks like the Kruger Park, the Tsitsikamma National Park and the Robberg Nature Hike. Shark cage diving in Hanspa is an expensive experience and we spent 14,000 rupees. We paid another 1,600 rupees for seeing the African penguins at the Boulders Beach and visited the Cape Peninsula where we paid 4,200 rupees. And then of course we paid 500 rupees to drive on the epic Chapmans Peak route. So we spent around 24,500 rupees on all these activities and it was all totally worth it. We spent an additional 5,000 rupees on souvenirs, some tips here and there and some light snacks. So we spent 3.3 lakh Indian rupees or $4,040 or 74,000 rands for a couple for an 11 days South Africa trip. If you want to make this a budget trip, then you can skip Kruger National Park, which will save you 1 lakh rupees, thus bringing down the total expense of your trip to under 2 lakh rupees.
So this was all the information that I wanted to share with you. That will help you plan your next adventurous trip to South Africa. In case if you have any questions or feedback, do let me know in the comment section below. And hope you all enjoyed watching this video. So take care and happy traveling.